P.O.L.
Yo, what up y'all? IntraVenus here, back with another episode. Today we're taking a look at a very unique handheld. I haven't seen too many people talk about this. This is the SJGAM M19. Comes in this black box with the shiny label on the top. It's actually pretty well packaged here. I found this particular one on Amazon because I've kind of stopped and shied away from buying on AliExpress. And actually, it's a good idea. I'll tell you later why you should buy on Amazon instead. But this one was on Amazon. I found it for somewhere around $85 and maybe $90. I think there was a coupon though. It's got 128 gigs included of games, with almost 30,000 games as were advertised. More than 30 emulators is what it says here. It does run emulation, and it has the newer RK3566 chip. It's a quad-core 855 1.8 gigahertz GPU Mali G52, 4 gigabytes system storage, and we got a 4.3-inch screen. It's IPS, 480 by 272 pixels. It's a OCA laminated, 3,000 milliamp hours. We got a decent battery in here. Maximum support is 128 gig card, so this is already loaded with the maximum support. So you'll see here we're doing the unboxing now, but I've actually been using this for a couple weeks because I've really wanted to like this a lot. But there are just a few flaws, and they're kind of game breakers. And there was also an audio problem with the first one that I ordered, and so it had this crackly audio, and I decided to go ahead and contact the customer support. They got back to me immediately, instantly, and immediately sent me a new one which didn't have crackly audio, and I sent back the old one. So that's why you should get it on Amazon. Here we are, you know, in the future, out of the unboxing and stuff, and this is a really nice looking handheld, and it's got a pretty nice feel for what it is. I really like this, you know, like bevel-less to the edge screen here. There's a little black bevel in there on the screen, but like the lens itself goes right to the edges, kind of like I think the Mayu Mini or whatever the hell it's called, Mio. It's another handheld made in China. One interesting feature here is they decided to put these L and R buttons on the back, the very back. They're buttons instead of triggers up here on this ledge where you'd normally find them. This looks exactly the same as they did recently on the Evercade, but not the Evercade that's called the Super Pocket, and it's like a Game Boy style version. They put those on the back too. I gotta say, it's not as bad as I thought it'd be, but in general, I do like them up here. They have the volume on the back, which is also an interesting choice, and I don't really mind that actually, because your fingers are already back there instead of having to reach to the side. You got your power switch on top. It does do HDMI out, and it's got one card slot there, and then we have our USB-C to charge and our headphone jack. This thing actually performs really well, and I guess it's because of that newer RK3566 chip. It handles everything on here almost flawlessly. I say almost because PSP, depending on what game you're playing, there are a few stutters, but actually the games seem to be fully playable. I was playing Grand Theft Auto on here. We'll show footage of gameplay here in a bit, but you'll see this comes with 304 PSP games, 176 PlayStation 1 games. You've got your options for favorites and all that. We've got 604 games for arcade there, 19 Final Burn, 13 games for MAME, 556 Atari 2600, 64 Atari 5200, 78 7800 games, that's fitting, and 102 Lynx games. We got Capcom 1, that's the CPS 1 system, 20 games. These are arcades, 20 games for CPS 2, and 493 games for CPS 3. PC Engine, 290 games. NES, 13,284. This is loaded with like every ROM hack and such. And then aside from this, it goes to this. If anybody could tell me what this is about, please do in the comments, because I don't know what's going on here. They have NES, and then they have NES, which is also NES. And I'm thinking the NES is more ROM hacks. But I don't know what the NES is or why they put that there. We have Game Boy, 1,057 games. 3,394 Super Famicom, 977 Super Nintendo, 138 N64, 545 games for the GBA, or the GBC. We got 1,064 GBA, 882 Sega, 263 Game Gear, 3,393 Mega Drive, 81 Neo Geo Pocket Color, and we're back to the PSP. This could be so good. It really could be good, but there's a couple problems like I mentioned. One of the main flaws here is actually that they failed to map the buttons properly. And it depends on what console you're playing. Most of them, it actually isn't an issue, but with the PSP, they have, and if I'm getting this correct, it's the PSP that has the circle and triangle buttons mixed up here. So it would be X, square, triangle, circle, but instead they have circle, triangle. That's something that's pretty easy to get used to unless you're playing a first-person shooter, which there aren't that many on the PSP, but there are some. It gets a little confusing when you're trying to use this to aim, and these are going the opposite directions. Aside from that, for the PSP, this is the perfect handheld for PSP, sort of. It does give you a smaller screen, but it's big enough, and it does display the actual correct aspect ratio. One of the reasons why I think it is so perfect is because if you ever wanted to play PSP almost in the size of a PSP Go screen, but you wanted to have like a Game Boy style format, well, this is pretty cool because you got your analog stick, your D-pad, you got all the buttons, plus 2 extra for the PSP. The PlayStation, they have turned it this way. So we got X here, circle, triangle, square. So it's like they took it and spun it. And that could also be confusing for first-person games. Aside from that, this is a beast for PlayStation. I love playing PlayStation on this. You don't really need a second analog stick in most, if not any, PlayStation game. There might be a handful. Most of them were made to play without an analog stick at all because it came out with that kind of controller originally. But the reason this has failed the most is because this would be a really good handheld Nintendo 64. You have pretty much all the buttons that you would use there. I think maybe you would leave out 2, if I'm thinking correctly, because you would have the C buttons and... No, actually, I think those 2 buttons would just be replaced with the L, R2 buttons because those aren't on a Nintendo 64 controller. Well, let me tell you, the problem here is they have, unfortunately, mapped the analog stick and the D-pad to the same controls. But whenever you press up on the analog stick, it presses up on the analog stick and up on the D-pad in any game that you are emulating. So that means the first-person games are out because it's got you trying to move forward and looking down at the same time the whole time. So when you move forward, you're looking at the ground in Turok and stuff like that. You are pretty much unable to enjoy N64 on here unless it is a game that didn't use the D-pad at all or didn't use the analog stick at all. So it's not really registering 2 different button presses. And then you're good to go. It looks great on here. Handles N64 beautifully. It's a shame. It's a huge shame that they did that because this is actually a really cool handheld. I really like it. I love the screen. I like the way it handles everything. And I actually like the feel and the controls. When you're holding it, your fingers do rest right on the right buttons, the correct buttons there. The only issue with that is that you could press these, but you need a little leverage on the edges of the screen to really press in on them, because if you're holding it, you're trying to press those with the side of your finger, it's kind of hard. You're kind of pushing up on the console. But these middle ones, you can press on those without needing much leverage. You are holding it anyways, so generally you are going to have that leverage. I think we should go ahead and take a look at the gameplay now. I know I've jabbered on a lot, but hopefully I cut out some of that and made it easier for you to listen to. And we're also going to do a TV test. I picked up this little HDMI mini to regular HDMI adapter, because I never had one of these, and we'll test out the video out because you can play this on the TV. So let's zoom in and we'll start checking out some gameplay. Before we get into the gameplay, I do want you to know that they have stripped down the menu settings quite a bit here. So you don't have anything more than sound, backlight, and your system settings are information and language, and then there is nothing in advanced. They've hidden that, and that's all seemingly locked away in the files. If you knew how to write code or edit some of the configuration files that are on here when you take out the SD card and put it in the computer, well, you could probably access more of that. It would be really cool if you can get a custom firmware on here, but I don't know. So you are limited to that. You're kind of set with what they have this set on. But luckily, aside from the map controls, they have everything optimized pretty darn well here. So we're going to start out with some PlayStation Portable. The PSP game list is actually massive, and when I first got it I thought it was mostly loaded with minis, but in fact there are all kinds of great games mixed in with the minis, and there are over 300 games, so it's pretty good actually what they've added here. It's interesting that when it starts it shows full screen and then it switches to the correct aspect ratio there. I'm not sure how or why they did that. These do come with a screen protector already applied. I've had both of them since I got two. The first one had audio problems. I returned it, got a new one, and this one is fine. I'm gonna have to mute any audio in this that's music because you'll get copyright stricken for that stuff. But this plays Grand Theft Auto really good actually.
Listen, if plans change, I'll let you know. Dog hitting it hard, more the man than you. Smoking cigarettes, holy cheese and crackers. I live in by homogenized milk, homo sapien. Yeah.
I'm playing through the viewfinder. I thought I made that turn. This handles really well. You know, Grand Theft Auto is fully playable on here. I was pleasantly surprised to see this. Because the old arcade 3326 or whatever, that thing couldn't handle PSP as well. Not nearly as well. This is actually freaking sweet. This is a really good way to play Grand Theft Auto. I like the way it feels in my hands here. And now I'm in the water. I mean, really, listen to the audio and the video. There's no stuttering here. God of War, of course, it was a little, you could see some frame rate issues there. I would say it's still somewhat playable, but not the ideal way to play it. Didn't really seem like the audio was stuttering so much as the frame rate was slowing down or something. Get over there, boy. Get. Okay. Oh, you don't want to jump? You don't want to jump over there? Fine. So yeah, Grand Theft Auto, it's a blast on here, not gonna lie. And switching these buttons around doesn't matter too much. I think what I'm finding here on that one is the PSP switched these two between the X and the circle, I think is what was happening. I thought maybe I was just playing like the Japanese versions of games, and I was using circle instead of square, or instead of X, but that's not the case here. So let's do one more PSP game. This is a first-person shooter. I can show you how it's possible, but it's not your favorite way to play. Though it looks so good, and it sounds good when you have a good audio. So if you get this on AliExpress, they're not gonna do any free returns for you. Maybe they will. They'll replace it if you ship it and pay for the shipping to ship it back to China. You know, Amazon. This thing showed up like the next day. I think the replacement took 2 days or so, but still. And here's another thing that is nice, but a lot of games that you'll run into are in another language. You do have the option to change it to English in some of them, but not all of them. And when you get a game that is in all Japanese or something, well, that could be hard unless you speak and read Japanese. I already started a save here to test it out. You see, I named it. Yeah, so see, with the PSP and the first-person shooters, normally you'd be pressing a triangle and X to look up and down, but instead I'm having to do this. This is a dark game, like literally. The visuals are dark. It's hard to see. I usually go in and change the brightness. The beginning's darker than some of it. I beat this game on the original PSP though. I really liked it, except for I think the final chapter you play as King Kong and it gets all glitchy. Get him! Get him! It's hard to do it through the camera here. That's a good one though. I recommend you guys check it out. As I said before, this is really, really good for PlayStation 1 because you got everything you need here, even though they mixed up the buttons a little bit. Still fully playable on most of your favorites here, and some of them are named a little weird, like we got Crash Wolf. I don't know if that's what they called him in Europe. I don't think so. Crash Wolf. But we got the Crash Bandicoot collection, the Tomb Raiders. There's I think a couple Resident Evils here, all kinds of stuff. A lot of good games here. It's got both Tombas if you like the Tomba games. It's got every Twisted Metal, I think. They're just, everything's kind of spread out here for whatever reason. So you think you're through the S's, all of a sudden you're back into the S's, then you're at the A's again, the T's. Who knows? You get used to the mix, or you can actually go in and edit it all. I think when I was in there, I noticed the numbers on the games, because I have added a few games to this. Here's something that I almost forgot to mention. In fact, I was editing the video and had to come back and tell you. For some reason, I could not see any of the contents on the SD card on here, on my MacBook, nor my PC. The only thing that I could actually access it with fully, without any issues at all, is with my Chromebook. I happen to have this cheap Chromebook I ordered from Amazon for like $40, and I use it almost exclusively for work emails, and when I pop in the micro SD card in here, I can see everything, and I can drag and drop and control all the ROMs, add my own ROMs and everything. But it didn't even show anything. It was like it didn't work on a Mac or a PC. Keep that in mind. So if you happen to get one of these, or you have one, they're also handy because they even have like a little micro SD slot right there. pretty cool. But it sucks as far as controlling this thing and its file system. I think like the aspect ratio and everything is pretty perfect here because you get the whole view. I'm gonna turn the music off on this one too. Some of these ROMs, depending on maybe where they got it, or I'm not really sure how their settings are, but they will have some strange audio. I don't know if it's just like I don't think it's the audio chip, because we heard the PSP games sounded pretty good. Every once in a while you get a game, could even be like on the Atari or something, and I don't know if it's certain bass sounds or something, they sound more like crackly pops instead of whatever the bass was supposed to be. Let's see if I can play this through the viewfinder. Well, this one's annoying with those noises and no music, but this plays really well. I cannot lie, this plays really well. One thing I like about having the analog stick is it's just, you can throw as many Hadoukens as you want. You really get control of your fighting. I think I like to use fighting games with an analog stick better, personally. And by the way, this ROM in particular, I didn't take the music off of. It's just missing the music. But it plays really well. Alright, let's see if I can play this through the viewfinder. Oh. Huh, not bad. Crash Bandicoot plays really good on here. This is from the trilogy. Oh, there we go. Well, you get the idea. PlayStation's just, it's looking good. They got all the settings good on here. It's great. Now, when we're talking about Game Boy Advance, they did utilize the full screen, well, which I believe stretches the aspect ratio just slightly on here, but I don't think it's very noticeable. I've been playing a lot of Game Boy Advance. I'm not sure how noticeable that is. I feel like this game, unfortunately, maybe has some audio crackles. And for here, they have A and B. This is A, this is B. Ah, yes, also, I really love playing pinball games on here and setting the flippers to these back buttons. It feels like you're holding a little pinball machine. It's kind of cool. I like the Pokemon pinball games, both of them. I think I like the Game Boy Color one better, but just because I'm not really into these mini games, they start going forever and it takes too long to get through them and get back to the regular pinball table. You know what I mean? I think Game Boy Advance plays pretty well on here. Every once in a while you'll get a game that has crackly audio, but I don't know if that's the ROMs, because not all of them have crackly audio. It doesn't seem to be based on the pool of the game's performance either. Like, it's not because the game's so performance heavy that it's making the audio crackle. But I could tell you, it was really bad on the first one I got. For everything. Now, this didn't come with Pokemon Pinball. It has all the other Pokemon games that you'd want. It had the one that I was just playing for Game Boy Advance. It didn't have the Game Boy Color one, so I went in and added it myself. Now, it's a little unfortunate, depending on who you are, that they utilize the entire screen for the Game Boy Color, because that is a noticeable stretch. Though it's still fully playable, and if you want to utilize a full screen like this, you'll be playing it like this anyways. Honestly, when looking at it on something like this, Pokemon Pinball, I don't really notice it. It looks good. I think I could play them all like this. Alright, so now we should go ahead and get to a TV test. I got this little mini HD TV here, and we're going to pop this bad boy open, attach it, and see how it looks on the TV. I realize this video is longer than my usual videos if you tuned in before, but there's a lot I want to cover here, and I'll try to add chapters so you could skip around. But we got to see how this looks. Ooh, that fits in there real snug. Let's see. See what's going to happen here. Hey, there it is. Look at that. Looks like the console restarted. Perhaps when I did that. Interestingly enough, it has adjusted the aspect ratio to a wide screen, and you can see that the text down here has not been stretched. It all actually is looking really well. Hey, I'm surprised about that. So let's see here. We got our... Alright, can I do the volume? See, this volume's all the way up. This TV does have a built-in speaker. So let's go ahead and check out some N64 on here. Even though for the most part these games don't play that well, something like Aero Gauge does play good. It's a racing game. Now let's see if it stretches this, or if it keeps the correct aspect ratio when playing Nintendo 64. Nope, it stretched it. Still, it's looking pretty good. Let's put this on a little stand here so you can see it properly. This game's pretty wild. I never played it before, I don't think. But you could just decide to fly instead of go. I just went through that marquee. Yeah, that's probably why you don't fly all the time. But look how well this handles N64. Aside from that one little stutter. Woo! This is... It's a shame that they didn't map the controls correctly. This one is fine. Some games, not so much. You do have a decent collection of games here. I mean, there's a lot. And I imagine you could get a lot of these games to play properly. Some games even have mappable buttons. You know, you could go in there and customize all your buttons once you're in there, and as long as you're not dealing with the game that utilizes the D-pad and the analog stick in the Nintendo 64, you should be good to go. Oh, this one's got some audio stuttering. Let's see if I could... I think you should be able to play this. Except for the audio stuttering, which is no good. We don't want audio stuttering. You know what? These buttons aren't even doing anything. It makes me think that they missed more than just the analog sticks, unfortunately. And you can go through all of these and try them, and like I said, you're going to run into that issue whenever you're playing a type of game that utilizes those type of controls. This really, it's sad because this even looks like an atomic purple Nintendo 64 controller or something. I mean, it could have been so good. It really could have. We've all seen Super Nintendo, and Game Boy is going to be the same aspect ratio as the Game Boy Color, and it does do gray scale, so And there's the amazing tater. And we got it stretched out, but you know, I don't know. I think it said this thing could do 4K. I don't really know about that. I don't know. Oops, I messed it up already. Oh, dang you, amazing tater. For the remainder of our tests, since we're already here, we might as well show you at least one Atari game. Because this thing plays Atari great. And for all the games on the actual handheld, most of these consoles set themselves to the correct aspect ratio, or at least the best one that utilizes your screen without putting it too stretched out of proportion. However, when you're on the TV, everything's going to be stretched out, it seems. But, man, you could get a lot of good times out of this thing. And to think that you get 30,000 games and it's sold on Amazon. This type of thing isn't going to happen forever. He's getting away. Yeah. Uh-oh. I love Dig Dug. And when you're all done with this, you don't have to go into any start menu and worry about messing up your system. You just hit the off switch like a Game Boy. Gotta love that. Alright, y'all. So we've gone through the ins and outs of this thing quite thoroughly, I think. If you've stuck around this long, I really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments what you think about the M19. No, this isn't a machine gun. It's a handheld from SJGAM. And despite all of its shortcomings and downfalls, man, that is a really good looking screen, I must say. And the console, it looks good too. It's unique. I like it when people are going outside the box here. Everybody's releasing these handhelds, you know, constantly. It's driving me nuts. I've decided that I've found the one that I want. It's not this one though. I really like this. I'm gonna keep using it when I can, where I can. This is it's worth owning, depending on who you are. If you're a collector of handhelds and stuff, I really hope they come out with an update. If they could just update it and change everything, really, or a custom firmware could really change everything. I really like that you could just turn it off by hitting the switch and not worry about corrupting the system. Hit the like button if you like this, please. Comment down below, let me know what you think. Subscribe if you're not already. It really helps me out and encourages me to make more videos. I've got a lot more coming, and this one I just found fascinating. I really wanted to know what y'all thought about it. I'll leave a link in the description below to get your own if you want it. And it does come in 3 colors, like a light gray, like a Game Boy, and then a clear smoke black, and the purple. It's kind of cool. I don't know. Could be more. Could be a lot more with that N64, but whatever. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace out.
That was just childhood. We were all there together, and in denial would play like it was forever. And in the tall woods, we'd stay out of the weather like it was all good. Every day we made it for pleasure. We were saying whatever came to our minds, plain and simple like a tetherball reaching the sky.